Morning Intuitives. Sorry I didn't get a video out yesterday. I was off from my main job, which I'm on my way to after I make this video, but I spent all yesterday, my day off, working my side job, my 1099 job. And then I caught up with a few friends who also work there, and we went to a pub, which I only do about 5 times a year. And the morning after, I realized why. Can't drink anymore. I'm getting old. Oh, I used to have that many pints pretty much like every other day 10 years ago. Man. Anyway, we were discussing things about the past, and it brought this topic up in my mind, and this one's more geared towards younger INFJs or perhaps older INFJs that are haunted about their past, particularly this stage of life, which in American culture is seemed as over important, glorified. American culture seems to be obsessed with these 4 years of your life, unlike other parts of the world. I mean, to a lesser extent, Canada is too, but like the Aussies and the Brits and the Irish and the Scots, yeah, not so much. And I envy that. I remember, people I met from the UK when I was in high school saying, like, we don't think like high school is this big deal, like great stage of life where all is determined in our country. They're like, you should come over here. I'm like, yes, yes, I should. So that's yet another thing I admire about the UK and other European countries, that it's not this glorification obsession with high school and the American entertainment industry particularly. But the topic, now that I've ranted on long enough, is why do INFJs hate high school? As INFJs, don't know. I mean, granted, I don't know that many, but high school not a good time of life for us at all. I mean, I'll say about my time, it's not like I was one of those people that was, like, oh, I'll never get through this. My life sucks. I just want to fit in. It was more like working a shitty job in a bad economy where it's like, this job sucks, but I can't quit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, clock in at the last minute, and I'm out the door, yabba dabba doo as soon as the whistle blows at the end of my shift, and not think about it until the next day. That was kind of my motive. And like, I was in honors classes. I mean, I was mostly a B student, a few A's mixed in there, but mostly a honors B student. I played travel hockey. I was part of stage crew. I was the co-captain of the mock trial team. I was on the debate team, etc., etc. I did things, and I didn't see how it was so great. But why that's specifically true for INFJs, and it ties into us, just the nature of us, and the fact of what most INFJs are, between the ages of 14 and 18, which is shy and introverted, very, very much so. So, in the traditional high school setting, and a little disclaimer for people younger, keep in mind I was in high school in the early 2000s, so some of my, experience is going to be dated, because, back in the days, where we had in the early 2000s, where life was about, we gotta attack them there so they don't come here. They hate us for our freedom. When Dick Cheney's puppet was nominally in charge of the country and regularly giving word mangling, word salady, gobbledygook speeches, and then walk out like, nailed it. Yeah, that was, as someone who was on the debate team, that was very entertaining for me. But in the early 2000s, the point I was trying to make before I went off on the bush ramp, no smartphones, no Facebook. Well, I think towards the end it was there, but just for college only. No YouTube, that kind of stuff. No Twitter, Snapchat, all that. I was like the last of those people that didn't have that in high school. Some of it didn't come out until I was after college. But again, just trying to set the premise for the era in which I endured this mess that is, the high school experience. So, why is it tough for INFJs? Well, we are introverted, and We seek deep conversations. In general, high school culture is surface level conformity, obedience. Uh, it's obsessed with status and keeping up with the Joneses. It kind of makes sense now that I'm saying this why, the baby boomers giving how the majority, not all of them are, why they glorify and try to hold on to this stage of life because it encompasses everything they're all about. And in high school, not too many people in general, we're broad brushing today, is concerned with who, an individual is. And it's about what group you're with, what group you're a part of, and fitting in and keeping up with the Joneses and all that stuff. Nobody wants to get you on a personal, intimate level, and it's all about popularity. I once had a girl that I was in high school with say to me when my idiot friend leaked the fact that I was doing modeling work, because I kept that on the down low because I didn't want the attention. I just wanted the money. But he let it leak, and people came up to me. This one girl was like, I can see look-wise why you could have that job, but I just can't buy it because you're not popular here. I'm like, and what does my popularity in a Catholic high school in Chester County have to do with, you know, getting a little modeling work in New York? Like, the two aren't related. And that goes into the point that I'm trying to make of how so many people in high school, it's a bubble of a world. It's not real. You're in an environment. Well, it's supposed to only last 4 years. I wish I would have gotten my GED at 16 and started taking university classes full time because I was in AP classes and doing it anyway. But I wouldn't have had to have been in that building. Anyway, yeah, that's a plan for anybody really young on here. I suggest doing that. Anyway, the idea that like high school is the real world, it's just false. I mean, you're underage, you don't have, or at least not full-time jobs. Well, I went to a Catholic school. Most people had money. Most of them didn't. I worked more hours during the week in school than they did in the summer. But you're not going to be like in this insular environment with people within a few years of your age very long. It's just not real. It's just not how the real world functions. And so many people that I went to high school with were like, this is the end all be all, and these groups are for life, and 20 years down the line, my life is set because I'm student council vice president. And it's like, no, like the day you leave and graduate, like, it's over. Nobody gives a fuck about that anymore. And that was something that might be unique to where I grew up. So many people, so many of the people who loved high school, the cool kids, so to say, all thought that their reputation, their popularity would automatically follow them into university. And many of them went to a state university located 10 minutes away. So that indeed did, and they are true Chestertologists to the bone and fear leaving that county where they don't have, the old boys club or, mommy and daddy's influence, nepotism, all that, because nobody gives a fuck who their last names would be outside of it. But many of the ones that went to other universities, particularly where I eventually ended up after my time in Canada, I noticed they all stuck together. Like, they all went as the same pack. Like, it was like high school never ended for them, because in university there's so many people, particularly if you go to a big school. There's people of all types, and that philosophical stage we all go through in college where people want to get to know somebody on a deep level and don't give a shit about who you were in high school or where you went, and that crushed these people. So they tried to maintain that insular bubble of their high school days and tried to prolong that, because from what I remember, not too many people wanted to really like get to know them on a deep level. I mean, yes, many of the girls I went to high school with were very pretty, and a lot of guys wanted to, know them briefly, but not, on a biblical level, but not on a deep level. And that seemed to shock those people that, like, high school's not forever. I remember towards the end we had a couple weeks left. Like probably the nicest guy in my high school, and he was kind of nerdy, but just an all-around good guy. I mean, he was a big dude. He played football and rugby. I mean, it's not like he was unathletic, but he didn't really party and stuff. He grew up in a more conservative Jewish family. Yes, he was the token Jewish guy at the Catholic high school. I was the token witch, but not many people knew that. I was still in the broom closet at the time. But, he said, like, he was just an all-around good guy, and people were giving him shit towards the end because he was saying, the people that were trying to hold on to high school, and he was just trying to be honest with them. He's like, don't don't you want to like start looking at what your life's gonna bring next? He's like, you got one foot out the door, like love high school or hate it. He's like, at the time, he's like, in 3 weeks it's over, and like they were just in shock. I mean, we knew graduation was coming, but it's like, you guys know there is no next year, right? Kind of thing. And if you get too caught up in that fake environment, you become unprepared for what comes after. Not that university life is the real world either, but it is more of the real world than, high school, because you are, most people, living on your own in an area that you are unfamiliar with at the time, and you're, interacting with people from all over the state, the country, perhaps the world, not just people from where you grew up who know your parents, and that whole mix thing where it's very insular. So there is that. But again, for an INFJ in high school, it's like, oh, so nobody wants to get to know me on a deep level. It's all about like who I'm friends with, what activities I do, first impressions, what small talk I can make. It's like, fuck this, I'm out. Like, I don't like any of it. I don't like any of that. So I'm just not going to participate and sit quietly and be a ghost. And in my case, I would interact, with people who tried to engage me one on one. I wasn't completely standoffish, but as far as like the drama and the gossip, it's like I got no fucking time for this. I was an EMT at the age of 17. There were days my senior year where I would come in after working night shift and have like a someone who was seriously injured or even died, and I'm hearing people chatter on about, oh my God, prom this and yearbook club this. It's like, like, when does this end? None of this matters. None of it does. And that seemed to be something that I saw, with a lot of the quote normies is, they all thought that like college would just be building upon, their reputation in high school. And it really hit them home when they went to, the ones that didn't go to college locally, they went, especially out of state, they were shocked to find out that, what do you mean, like, people all over don't know about Chester County? Like, they're not, wondering what's going on there? Because this area tends to think it's like the center of the world, or at least the center of the country, and it's not. I mean, you know, I don't think people in DC or LA or Chicago or Toronto or London are like, what's going on in that Philadelphia suburb that's trying to pretend it's still the 1980s? And that was, a shock for a lot of people. But for INFJs, we're very adaptable. We're always prepared to move on and go into the next stage of life. We handle change fairly well, although we don't like abrupt change if it's derailing a long-term plan of ours. But just change in general, say like if change is a necessary component of that end game that you're working towards, oh yeah, no problem, no problem. So for us, high school is very fake. It's a waste of time. Uh, you know, it's very superficial. It requires a lot of painful small talk. Again, we're not into gossip or rumors. It's almost impossible just to be left alone. Um, did I mention it's fake enough? Because it's fake. Nobody's really, like I said, looking for like those deep one-on-one connections. It's all about conformity and, pack mentality, go with the flow, don't question the status quo. All things we're not so good at. And I don't believe that's really changed, throughout the past roughly 20 years. It's just not a good stage of life for an INFJ. Well, college is pretty cool. So if you're a young INFJ, listen to this. There is hope. Grind it out. Again, last in the door, first out the door. It works. Trust me. So don't get caught up, younger INFJs, in the idea just because, high school is glorified in American culture for a reason to this day I don't understand. I wouldn't want to be a teenager again if it paid me. Well, 19 was pretty cool. Yeah, I wouldn't mind being 19 again. Maybe. I don't know. But none of the others for sure. Definitely not. So, high school, love it or hate it, it's only 4 years. You'll get through it. And believe me, what people are or think they are in the confines of that bubble, that's not how the real world works. You'll realize that a year or two after you're out of university. Trust me. You'll your intuition telling you what a joke it is and that it's fake is right. Now, it's going to take time for you to have that validation that you were right all along, but I assure you it is coming. So remember, just trust your intuition of when not to engage in that fake environment, and don't sell out your integrity to try to fit in, because as I said, it's fake, and love it or hate it, it only lasts 4 years.